Summer 1943. Inside an American prison camp, a captured German soldier stares at something he has never seen before. A brown, fizzing drink in a glass bottle. Coca-Cola. He takes a sip. It's sweet, cold, completely unnecessary, and available to anyone for just 5 cents. For a man who had survived on black bread, bitter ersatz coffee, and hard biscuits in the desert, this was unbelievable. And then came the ice cream. The prisoners of war who expected cruelty, starvation, and humiliation instead found themselves living in a world of American abundance, a world that would change them forever. Summer 1943, Camp Crossville, Tennessee. A German soldier stared in amazement at the brown liquid fizzing in the glass bottle. After 2 years in North Africa, living on hard biscuits and bitter ersatz coffee, this sweet drink called Coca-Cola felt impossible. It cost just 5 cents in the camp canteen. The same price, guards explained, that American children paid with their allowance. That summer, across U.S. prison camps, more than 370,000 German POWs discovered an America very different from what Nazi propaganda had promised. Instead of a weak, starving nation, they found one overflowing with food. Ice cream was a normal dessert, sodas were everyday drinks, and candy bars were so common that guards sometimes gave them away. For many Germans, these simple treats, things most children back home had never even tasted, shattered years of propaganda. Sugar, chocolate, and ice cream showed them a new truth. American industry could provide abundance on a scale that made their own suffering in Germany look pointless. When the Afrika Korps surrendered in Tunisia in May 1943, around 250,000 German and Italian soldiers fell into Allied hands. These men, veterans of desert warfare, expected harsh treatment. Nazi leaders had warned them of American brutality and starvation. But within hours of surrender, they were given U.S. field rations. American soldiers often complained about these meals, yet to the Germans they were feasts: crackers, processed cheese, candy, fruit bars, instant coffee, sugar tablets, and cigarettes. At the North African processing camps, the U.S. Army even served pancakes with syrup, fresh eggs, and milk, foods that had disappeared from German rations years earlier. Then came the journey across the Atlantic. Every month, Liberty ships carried up to 30,000 prisoners to America. Built at record speed, one finished every 42 hours. These ships carried POWs with the same or even better food than the crews ate: fresh bread, meat, vegetables, and plenty of coffee with milk and sugar. Ice cream was even served on board. The USS General M.B. Stewart's log shows that on July 4, 1943, its ice cream machine produced 10 gallons in a single batch, enough to treat both crew and prisoners. For men who hadn't tasted ice cream in years, eating it in the middle of the ocean felt unreal. When the ships docked in Norfolk or Newport News, the contrast grew even sharper. The Norfolk Naval Base alone moved more cargo in a day than German ports could handle in a week. At base shops, prisoners saw shelves packed with Hershey, Mars, and Nestle bars, sold at the same 5-cent prices everywhere in America. Finally, their train ride inland confirmed everything. Unlike the cattle cars of Europe, they rode in passenger coaches with dining cars serving full meals. For many Germans, this was the moment they realized the America they had been taught to despise was far stronger and far richer than they had ever imagined. In July 1943, menus on American trains listed fried chicken, vegetables, pie, and coffee. German prisoners soon realized this wasn't a special treat. It was just normal American rail service. The U.S. prison camp system gave POWs conditions that were better than what the Geneva Convention required. A typical camp like Crossville, Tennessee had electric lights, hot water, flush toilets, and heated barracks. But what surprised the prisoners most were the camp exchanges, PX stores. According to Army records, these stores sold Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Dr. Pepper, RC Cola, candy bars, ice cream where refrigeration allowed, cigarettes, fresh fruits, snacks, and even light beer. Prisoners earned wages for labor, 80 cents a day at first, later raised to 1. Since a Coca-Cola or candy bar cost only 5 cents, one day's pay could buy 16 treats, unthinkable in Germany, where such items were rare or impossible to find. Coca-Cola quickly became a symbol of American abundance. In 1943, the company produced 5 billion bottles. The U.S. military guaranteed that every soldier worldwide could buy a Coke for 5 cents, a huge logistics operation. German POWs discovered Coke everywhere in camps, factories, schools, and gas stations. Americans drank it casually, sometimes leaving bottles half-finished, something that shocked Germans who were used to scarcity. Technically minded prisoners were amazed that Coca-Cola tasted the same in Texas as it did in Maine. The syrup was made in Atlanta, then sent nationwide to bottling plants, proving an industrial organization beyond what Germany could achieve. Records show that many camps received 200-300 cases a week, each with 24 bottles. At Camp Hearn, Texas, prisoners drank about 7,000 bottles per week during summer 1943. Ice cream was another surprise. Germans hadn't seen it since before the war, yet in U.S. camps it was served regularly in summer. The U.S. military considered ice cream so important for morale that it even built special ice cream ships for the Navy. At Camp Shelby, Mississippi, the July 4, 1943 celebration included ice cream made on site with hand-cranked freezers. By 1944, many camps had electric ice cream machines, offering chocolate, vanilla, strawberry, and butter pecan. Prisoners could buy bars or sandwiches for 10 cents, while larger camps ordered 5,100 gallons per week in summer. Sugar use shocked the Germans most of all. In Germany, sugar was tightly rationed. Civilians got about 280 grams a month. In American camps, sugar was everywhere, sitting in bowls on mess hall tables for unlimited use. Kitchens baked cakes, cookies, and pies regularly. At Camp Aliceville, Alabama, several hundred pounds of sugar hardened from humidity. Instead of saving it, the staff threw it out and simply ordered more. German workers were horrified at such waste. Chocolate was equally abundant. Hershey, Mars, and Nestlé produced millions of bars monthly, and the U.S. military bought 380 million pounds of chocolate during the war. Camp stores sold Hershey bars and other brands for 5-10 cents. The Red Cross also gave monthly packages containing chocolate, coffee, cheese, crackers, canned meat, cigarettes, and soap. These extras often surpassed what German civilians got as basic rations. American holidays impressed POWs deeply. On Thanksgiving 1943, every prison camp served turkey with stuffing, mashed potatoes, sweet potatoes, cranberry sauce, vegetables, pumpkin pie, and coffee. Feeding 425,000 prisoners the same meal as U.S. soldiers showed America's huge supply system. At Christmas 1943, American civilians sent gifts. Church groups and local communities donated cookies, candy, toiletries, books, and games, even though their own families were fighting Germans overseas. This kindness shocked the prisoners more than the food. By 1944, about 100,000 German POWs worked in American farms and factories. In Michigan orchards, they picked cherries used only as decoration for ice cream sundaes, tons of fruit just for garnish. At canneries, they watched workers reject perfectly good fruit for small blemishes, food that Germans would have eaten but Americans fed to animals. In Colorado and Nebraska, they saw mechanized sugar beet farms that produced more sugar than entire German regions. They also saw American schools feeding children hot lunches with milk, meat, and vegetables. Some cafeterias even sold ice cream. For Germans whose children went hungry, this was unforgettable. Prisoners on outside work details sometimes ate in American diners. Menus shocked them. A hamburger for 25 cents, Coca-Cola for 5 cents, a slice of pie for 15 cents, and an ice cream sundae for 25 cents. For the Germans, these everyday meals, snacks, and holiday feasts destroyed the image of a weak America. Instead, they saw a nation of abundance, efficiency, and generosity that Nazi propaganda had never prepared them to face. By 1944, German prisoners in America were experiencing meals and services that shocked them. A full dinner special at an ordinary diner cost just 65 to 75 cents. What stunned the Germans wasn't just the food, but the equality to factory worker, and a bank president could sit side by side at the counter, served the same meal by the same waitress, at the same price. This contradicted the rigid class divisions of German society. As POWs gained access to American newspapers and magazines, they read production statistics that dwarfed anything in Germany. In 1944 alone, the U.S. produced 7 million tons of sugar, 380 million pounds of chocolate for the military, 5 billion bottles of Coca-Cola 1943 figure, over 500 million gallons of ice cream, 119 billion pounds of milk by comparison. German production in the same years looked tiny. Sugar was rationed and mostly from beets. Chocolate went almost entirely to the military. Soft drinks were barely produced. Ice cream was practically non-existent, and milk was heavily rationed. Americans published these numbers openly, while Germany tried to hide its shortages. The reality became so striking that by late 1944, German POWs in America were sending food packages back home rather than receiving them. With their camp wages, they bought chocolate bars, instant coffee, and canned goods to mail to Germany. International Red Cross records confirm that German prisoners in the U.S. sent about 11 million parcels to their families during captivity. The irony was clear: free Germans starved, while their captured relatives in America sent them food. American rationing also revealed the gap. Americans complained bitterly about sugar rationing at £2 per person monthly. But this was still 3 times more than Germans received when sugar was even available. Meat rations in the U.S. were 28 ounces weekly per person, more than many Germans got in a month. Even under rationing, Americans consumed at levels Germans considered unbelievable luxury. Records from the Office of Price Administration show that Americans in 1944 still averaged 74 pounds of sugar per person, 10 times German consumption. And beyond Coca-Cola, POWs discovered a vast U.S. soft drink industry: Pepsi, Dr. Pepper, RC Cola, Orange Crush, and countless regional brands. Bottling plants in every major city produced millions of bottles each year, and distribution reached even the smallest towns. By war's end, American soda production hit billions of bottles annually, far exceeding entire German consumer industries. The final blow to Nazi ideology came in spring 1945. German POWs in America saw newsreels of American soldiers handing out chocolate and gum to German children. The contrast was overwhelming. U.S. troops, advancing into enemy territory, carried so much candy they could give it away freely, while the German state had left its own children starving. Then came images of concentration camp survivors, emaciated prisoners given American rations by GIs. It showed humanity and abundance that Nazi propaganda had always denied. When German POWs returned home in 1945-46, they returned healthier than when they were captured. Medical reports showed many had actually gained weight, while their families had grown thinner from hunger. Fathers brought back Red Cross parcels filled with chocolate, coffee, and canned goods. Treasures in a ruined Germany. Children who hadn't tasted chocolate in years received Hershey bars from fathers who had eaten ice cream in captivity. This experience transformed them. Many became advocates for the Marshall Plan after the war. They had seen firsthand that American prosperity came not from conquest, but from production. They realized abundance was not a zero-sum game. Americans were wealthy enough to feed enemies and still rebuild them afterward. The lessons they carried back helped fuel West Germany's economic miracle of the 1950s. Former POWs had seen mass production, standardization, and industrial democracy in action. They learned that efficiency and abundance created stability, while authoritarian control only created scarcity. As historian Arnold Kramer, the leading expert on German POWs in America, concluded, food abundance accomplished what propaganda could not. It destroyed the myth of Nazi superiority more effectively than re-education programs ever could. The numbers tell the story clearly. German POWs in America, 1943, 46 calories, 300 to 600 sugar, 4 obs monthly meat, 32 a weekly, 1 quart daily ice cream, served regularly in summer, soft drinks unlimited at 5 cents each. German civilians, same period, daily calories 200 to 500 sugar, 280 g monthly, when available meat about 10 oz weekly. Often unavailable milk, severely rationed ice cream, none soft drinks. None German prisoners in America ate better than civilians back home in Germany. This proved that American abundance extended even to defeated enemies. Their experiences with U.S. food culture left a deep mark on post-war Germany. When Coca-Cola returned to West Germany in 1949, it became a symbol of the American alliance. Ice cream parlors styled after American soda fountains opened in German cities. Candy bars and chewing gum became symbols of recovery. Many former POWs even became importers of American food products, knowing firsthand how powerful their appeal was. These foods stood for more than taste. They symbolized abundance, democracy, and modern life. Supermarkets also arrived in Germany in the 1950s, often supported by former POWs who had seen American grocery stores. They understood that true abundance required modern distribution systems, not just more production. In interviews and memoirs, ex-prisoners repeatedly described food as the most transformative part of captivity. One former Afrika Korps officer said in 1975, "Will expected to defeat a weak, divided America. Instead, We found a nation that could give ice cream to enemies. That's when we knew we had lost more than a war. We had lost our worldview. Another veteran, interviewed in 1985, recalled, "My first Coca-Cola was like drinking the future, sweet, fizzing, unnecessary, and available to anyone for a nickel. That drink contained everything Nazi Germany was not. Abundant, democratic, joyful." Such testimonies show how food abundance achieved what military defeat alone could not: a complete change in belief. Men who arrived as Nazi soldiers left as witnesses to democratic prosperity. Historians note that this worked because it wasn't forced re-education. Prisoners simply observed American life, 3 meals a day, PX stores full of sweets, and a society that treated even enemies with dignity. Hunger and satisfaction are universal, undeniable lessons. Every Coke showed the power of mass production. Every ice cream sundae showed that abundance could be shared by everyone. These stories lived on. Children of former POWs grew up hearing about Coca-Cola, chocolate, and ice cream in American camps. At first the stories sounded unbelievable, until in the 1950s, West Germany recovered and those same products became available. Many of those children later studied or worked in America, drawn by their fathers' memories. The impact went beyond individuals. West German business culture absorbed American lessons: mass production, standardization, and consumer choice. The economic miracle of the 1950s wasn't just about factories. It was about creating abundance for ordinary citizens. Today, Coca-Cola is everywhere in Germany. McDonald's runs over 400 restaurants. Ice cream is an everyday treat. The transformation that began in U.S. prison camps is complete. The lesson remains powerful. Ideology was defeated not by cruelty, but by abundance. Not by propaganda, but by demonstration. The Nazis had promised victory through conquest, but America proved strength came from production and generosity. Former POWs often remembered small, vivid moments: the fizz of their first Coca-Cola, the first spoonful of ice cream, the first bite of a Hershey bar. These memories carried more weight than any speech. They had tasted democracy, and it was sweet. They returned to Germany not just healthier than when captured, but changed forever. Many became unexpected ambassadors of freedom, spreading the idea that true power lay in abundance and liberty. America's greatest weapon was not only its military, but its ability to casually give Coca-Cola and ice cream to its enemies. In the end, these simple foods achieved what armies could only attempt: the transformation of hearts and minds. German prisoners who once doubted that such abundance could exist went home carrying the truth. That democracy tasted like chocolate, and freedom fizzed like soda. Their story proves that sometimes the greatest victories are not won through destruction, but through generosity. Not through taking, but through giving. Not through hate, but through the simple act of serving ice cream to enemies on a hot summer day. When the Afrika Korps surrendered in Tunisia in May 1943, around 250,000 German and Italian soldiers became Allied prisoners. Nazi propaganda had warned them America was weak, divided. Prisoners would be beaten, starved. But the reality was the exact opposite. Within hours of capture, they were given U.S. field rations: crackers, processed cheese, fruit bars, cigarettes, instant coffee with sugar. To German soldiers who had gone hungry for months, these emergency meals were feasts. And it was only the beginning. Each month, Liberty ships carried tens of thousands of prisoners to the United States. These ships were mass-produced at record speed, one every 42 hours. On board, prisoners ate 500 calories a day: fresh bread, meat, vegetables, real coffee. And on July 4, 1943, the log of the USS General M.B. Stewart records something impossible. Ice cream was served to prisoners in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. For men who hadn't tasted ice cream since before the war, it felt like sorcery. When they arrived at ports like Norfolk, Virginia, the shock only deepened. German POWs saw warehouses bigger than German cities. Shops overflowing with Hershey bars, Mars bars, Nestle chocolate, all sold for just 5 cents each. The same price American children paid with their allowance. Unlike cattle cars in Europe, prisoners traveled inland in passenger trains with dining cars serving hot meals: fried chicken, vegetables, coffee. For the Germans, it was unthinkable. American prison camps followed the Geneva Convention and went beyond it. At Camp Crossville, Tennessee, prisoners found electric lights, hot water, flush toilets, and heated barracks. But the true shock came from the PX stores. Quartermaster records show the shelves Coca-Cola, Pepsi, Dr. Pepper, RC Cola, candy bars, ice cream, fresh fruit, tobacco, even light beer. Prisoners were paid 80 cents a day, later raised to 1. At 5 cents a Coke, one day's wage could buy 16 bottles. They saw Americans drink Coke casually, sometimes tossing away half a bottle. They saw ice cream eaten in summer like it was nothing. They saw sugar bowls placed openly on tables, unlimited. In Germany, sugar was rationed at a few ounces a month. In America, hundreds of pounds were delivered to each camp every week. The contrast was stunning. On Thanksgiving 1943, German POWs sat down to the same meal as U.S. sold roast turkey with stuffing, mashed potatoes, sweet potatoes, cranberry sauce, pumpkin pie, coffee, and milk. At Christmas, American civilians sent gifts, cookies, candy, books, cigarettes, even homemade treats. In Texas, church groups baked Christmas cookies for the enemy. For men raised in Nazi ideology, this kindness was almost harder to understand than the food. By 1944, German prisoners were learning the statistics, and the numbers destroyed Nazi propaganda. America produced 7 million tons of sugar annually, 380 million pounds of chocolate for the military alone, 5 billion bottles of Coca-Cola in 1943, 500 million gallons of ice cream, the 119 billion pounds of milk. Germany couldn't match these even in peacetime. Its civilians starved while American prisoners ate 3 meals a day, gained weight, and mailed food parcels back home. Records show German POWs in America sent 11 million food packages to starving families in Germany. Over time, the abundance reshaped minds. One former Africa Corps officer admitted, "Why expected to defeat a weak America? Instead, we found a nation that gave ice cream to enemies. That's when I knew we had lost more than the war. We had lost our entire worldview." Another recalled his first Coca-Cola. It was like drinking the future. Sweet, fizzing, joyful. That drink contained everything Nazi Germany was not. The lesson was simple and undeniable. Every Coke bottle, every Hershey bar, every ice cream sundae taught them that democracy could outproduce dictatorship. When the war ended, many prisoners returned to Germany healthier than when they were captured. They carried chocolate, coffee, and canned goods home to starving families. They also carried new ideas. They had seen supermarkets. They had seen mass production. They had seen a society where abundance created stability. In the 1950s, as West Germany rebuilt, these lessons shaped the economic miracle. Coca-Cola returned in 1949. Ice cream parlors opened in every city. Supermarkets spread, modeled on the stores former prisoners had seen in America. And decades later, the stories lived on, told to children who grew up hearing about the impossible abundance of America. In the end, America's most powerful weapon wasn't just its army. It was the ability to hand an enemy soldier a Coca-Cola or a bowl of ice cream. German POWs entered prison camps as believers in Nazi superiority. They left as witnesses to democratic prosperity. They discovered that freedom could taste like chocolate, and democracy could fizz like soda. Sometimes, wars are not won through destruction, but through generosity. Not through cruelty, but through abundance. And in 1943, America defeated an ideology with something as simple as ice cream and Coca-Cola.